Yahweh, I cry out to you to call the scattered seed of Israel to these anointed words, to the voice of Elijah, to hear what they need to hear, to tear off the veil of lies that they've been told, so that they will remember the Sabbath, so they will remember the covenant. Yahweh, I just ask you to soften their hearts, open their minds, tear the veil off their eyes, let their ears hear your words. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ the Messiah, we pray. Amen. The sacred simplicity of the Sabbath. Holy Convocation, no servile work, the end. Apostle Shane Vaughn. Preface, a word from the founder. When Yahweh so graciously used my feeble and broken person to found and supernaturally establish First Harvest Ministries International, it was not born out of tradition, but out of revelation. Yahweh had deposited into my spirit a vision, clear, convicting, and divine, of His holy Sabbath days. I did not receive this understanding through man-made study, nor by the systems of Messianic Judaism, nor through denominational heritage. I received it by the same Spirit that rested upon Elijah and all other truth seekers of the ages, to restore all things, and among those sacred restorations is the Sabbath, not just its timing, but its truth, its intent, and its delight. Very early in this ministry, I began to encounter a strange paradox. While we proclaim the beauty and liberty of Sabbath observance, according to the Torah's simplicity, to rest and together in holy convocation, others began to slowly creep in with burdensome rules, Pharisaical prescriptions, and a rigidity foreign to the joy and mercy of Yahweh's design. These individuals, while sincere, began subtly and more openly to suggest that our ministry was failing to keep the Sabbath properly. It grieved me, not because they disagreed, but because they sought to shepherd the sheep placed in my care. They tried to do so without a staff of divine authority. I began with a truth that is both undeniable and sobering. Not one person reading these words, including you, can claim to know anyone who keeps the Sabbath in perfect accordance with the strict rules related to the Sabbath. And as you journey through this lesson, I will prove precisely why that is so. I have long tried to honor those with differing views. For years I welcomed various expressions of Sabbath living, as long as those personal convictions were kept personal. But when this kindness was met with confusion in the camp, it became my sacred responsibility to speak, not as a man with an opinion, but as a shepherd guarding the gates. This booklet is not an argument. It is an affirmation. It is the official teaching of First Harvest Ministries International regarding the Sabbath. And let it be clearly understood, while every soul is free to walk according to their own conscience, no one is welcome to correct divine authority in this house. What follows is the revelation of the Sabbath as given to me by the Spirit of Yahweh. It is the voice of Elijah crying out in this modern wilderness of man-made commandments. Come back to the joy of the Lord. Return to the simplicity of the Sabbath rest. Lay down your burden and pick up the blessing. Let the reader understand, and let the house walk in unity. Let us now journey into the delight of the Sabbath, as Yahweh intended. Chapter 1. The voice of Elijah will restore all things. Before the breaking of dawn in Yahweh's climatic calendar, before the clouds split and the king returns, there must arise a prophetic voice, a voice not shaped by a seminary syllable, nor compromised by denominational councils. It is the voice of Elijah, sent to echo through the wilderness of religion and cry, "Restore." For is it not written, "Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of Yahweh, and he shall return the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers." Malachi 4:5-6. This is no poetic sentiment. It is a divine assignment. The mission of Elijah is not to entertain the church. It is to confront it. And confront he must. For one of the great casualties in the battle of apostasy has been the Sabbath, Yahweh's holy seventh day. divinely designed for rest, reverence, and rejoicing. The Sabbath has not only been discarded by the lawless, but also distorted by the legalist. One has abandoned it altogether, and the other has buried it beneath a mountain of man-made mandates. But the voice of Elijah does neither. He restores it. A profound question lingers as I pen these lines. Might these very words grace tomorrow's headlines, proclaiming the momentous, world-altering return of the Messiah? The world awaited the return of its king, but few recognized the signs that preceded his arrival. In the stillness before the storm, a voice cried from the wilderness, carrying the ancient message of Elijah. This prophet, unnamed by seminary rolls or denominational records, stood apart, sent by Yahweh with a divine mandate to restore. Not with the feeble force of human effort, but with the authority of heaven. He challenged the comfortable compromise of religion. With each proclamation, he echoed the words of Malachi, a prophetic promise. Remember the law of my servant Moses, the decrees and laws I gave him at Horeb for all Israel. It was a call to return, not to the burdens of legalism, but to the beauty of Yahweh's original design. For too long, the Sabbath had been a casualty of spiritual warfare, trampled by those who disregarded its sacredness and shackled by those who added burdensome rules. It had lost its true meaning, but the voice of Elijah, strong and clear, proclaimed a different message. He spoke of a day set apart, a day of rest and worship, a day that reflected the very character of Yahweh, a day when creation itself paused and humanity, in harmony with the rhythm of heaven, found true freedom and joy. In the midst of a sleeping world, this voice cried out, awakening hearts to the beauty of Yahweh's calendar. It was a voice that could not be ignored, for it carried the weight of heaven's agenda. And as the clouds gathered, signaling the king's return, the voice of Elijah fell silent. His mission fulfilled. The restoration had begun. The restoration mandate. Elijah comes not to tweak tradition, but to topple false towers and resurrect ancient paths. He is not a reformer. He is a restorer. And the Sabbath, brothers and sisters, must be restored, not merely in calendar, but in character. As the world slumbers, unaware of the coming tempest, the voice of Elijah resonates with renewed fervor. He stands at the threshold of a new era, his words echoing through the corridors of faith. In a world plagued by spiritual lethargy, his message is a clarion call, awakening the dormant spirits of those who hear it. With each utterance, he peels back the layers of religious ritual that had obstructed the true essence of Yahweh's covenant. The voice of Elijah is not a gentle whisper, but a thunder roar that shakes the foundations of complacency. He speaks of a return to simplicity, to the unadulterated truth of Yahweh's law. In his words, the Sabbath emerges not as a burden, but as a beacon of freedom and joy. It is a day when the chaos of the week found respite, when humanity synchronized with the celestial rhythm, and when the weight of heaven's agenda became tangible. With every proclamation, Elijah challenges the comfortable and confronted the compromised. He calls out to a world drifting further from its divine anchor, reminding them of the ancient paths that led to restoration and wholeness. And as the clouds gathered, signaling the imminent return of the King, Elijah's voice, strong and unwavering, proclaims the beauty of Yahweh's calendar, where the Sabbath stood as a shining testament to the harmony between heaven and earth. For too long, the Sabbath has been misrepresented, reduced either to a badge of sectarian pride or weaponized as a rod of religious tyranny. The true Sabbath is neither. It is a gift, not a gavel. It is a delight, not a device of spiritual surveillance. Yahweh did not hallow the seventh day so it could be hijacked by Pharisaical traditions. He sanctified it so it might bless his people with rest, a sacred pause in a profound world. As the voice of Elijah gains momentum, a great awakening begins to stir. Hearts once numb to the cadence of Yahweh's calendar now beat in time with its ancient rhythm. The sleeping giants of faith are being roused from their slumber, shaking off the dust of complacency, and rising with renewed vigor. The message of restoration resonates, and a great unshackling is occurring. The Sabbath, long confined by the chains of legalism, is being set free, and its true essence shines brightly once more. It is no longer a day of burdens and bondage, but a day of liberation and love, a day when the yoke of the weak was cast aside, and the weary found solace in the embrace of Yahweh's rest. In the midst of this great revival, a new understanding emerges. The voice of Elijah, now a chorus of many, proclaims the Sabbath as a reflection of Yahweh's very nature. It is a day that mirrors the Creator's own pattern of work and rest, a divine rhythm that brings harmony to the chaos. No longer is it a day of religious ritual and rule-keeping, but a day of relationship and reconciliation, a day when the breach between heaven and earth is mended, and humanity is invited into the very presence of Yahweh. With each passing week, the restoration deepens. The voice of Elijah, now a mighty torrent, sweeps away the debris of distortion and deception. The Sabbath is no longer a forgotten relic of the past, but a vibrant testament to Yahweh's unchanging character. It stands as a beacon of hope, a reminder that in a world of constant change and chaos, there is a constant and unshakable foundation. As the ominous clouds of uncertainty continue to gather, signaling the imminent return of the King, the voice of Elijah proclaims with unwavering certainty, "Prepare the way, the King is coming, and his kingdom shall know no end." The scripture declares, "Thus saith Yahweh, stand ye in the ways, and see and ask for the old paths, where is the good way, and walk therein, and ye shall find rest from your souls." Jeremiah 6:16. The Sabbath is the old path, not to be reinvented, but rediscovered. The voice of Elijah does not bring a new Sabbath. He brings back the ancient one. This Elijah work is not a fringe ministry. It is the very forerunning sound that prepares a people to meet their King. And what is the mission of this prophetic voice? It is not merely to preach. It is to restore, to reestablish Yahweh's sacred patterns, to raise up ancient truths long buried beneath rubble and ruin. Among the highest peaks of the restoration is the Sabbath, the sign between Yahweh and his covenant people. Exodus 31:13. This restoration, led by Elijah's voice, focuses on reclaiming God's intended rhythms for life. It's a call to remember, not reinvent. The Sabbath's significance transcends mere rest. It's a covenant marker, a visible testament to God's faithfulness. This rediscovery is crucial for spiritual renewal. This prophetic work anticipates the King's arrival, preparing hearts and lives for his reign, paving the way for a deeper relationship with Yahweh. Moreover, also I gave them my Sabbaths, to be a sign between me and them, that they might know that I am Yahweh, that sanctify them. Ezekiel 20:12. The Sabbath is Yahweh's fingerprint upon his covenant people. The Elijah company must not let that mark be smeared by tradition or ignored by compromise. Perhaps this is the greatest challenge of the end-time school of prophets, truth speakers, to find that intricate balance. Elijah does not come to create a new order, but to call us back to what has always been. He cries not for novelty, but for a return. Not to the ancient paths, Jeremiah 6:16, to the appointed rhythms of rest and rejoicing that Yahweh instituted at creation, Genesis 2:2-3. The Elijah message does not elevate rabbinic fences or Gentile distortions. It lifts up Yahweh's original intention, a day set apart for delight, communion, and covenantal recognition. Elijah's call resonates with the timeless rhythm of creation, a sacred rest echoing God's own rest after creation's work. This isn't a new law, but a rediscovery. It's a reclaiming of the Sabbath's true meaning, unburdened by later additions, a return to the joy inherent in God's design. This pure intention must be guarded as much as the Sabbath itself must be guarded. So must the original intent. This restoration focuses on the covenantal relationship, strengthening the bond between Yahweh and his people through joyful obedience. The journey of return continues. Honoring all convictions. At First Harvest Ministries International, we hold fast to the pure word of Yahweh as the foundation of our Sabbath teaching. But let it be clearly stated, We fully support and encourage every believer to honor their own personal convictions when it comes to Sabbath observance, especially if it helps them avoid dishonoring this sacred day. We recognize for many, building personal boundaries around the Sabbath is a way of protecting its holiness in their lives. In our ministry, we have a precious group who are procurators of the Sabbath. These are brothers and sisters who go above and beyond the simple teachings we lay out from Torah. They fast more often. They prepare earlier. They shut out every distraction. They sacrifice deeply, and we honor them. This unwavering commitment to Sabbath sanctity inspires others. Their dedication strengthens our community. The prospectors' sacrifice deepen the meaning of joyful obedience, setting a powerful example. Their devotion enriches our understanding. Their commitment to personal conviction, however expressed, fuels a deeper exploration of God's covenant. Their journey continues to inspire. They are not condemned, they are celebrated. You can never live too holy. You can never be too set apart. You can never go too far in, unless in doing so you condemn those who do not follow you all the way in. That is the line we must not cross. At FHMI, we teach that the Word says, and we do not bind anyone's conscience between what is written. But if Yahweh has led you to do more, then walk that path in joy. Only do so without judgment. We will all appear before the judgment seat of Messiah. Each will give account for their own walk, not others. Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. A ministry under mandate. When I received the vision for this ministry, I did not ask for it. I did not concoct it. It was laid upon me like a mantle, like fire shut up in my bones. And in that fire I saw the Sabbath, not as a doctrine to be debated, but as a truth to be declared. From the beginning, our house of worship kept the Sabbath in line with what is written, not what is assumed. But as time passed, others crept in, self-appointed sheriffs of Sabbath sanctity, bearing heavy burdens for others to carry. They spoke often of Nehemiah, but not of Yeshua. They quoted the Talmud, but not the Torah. And they presumed to teach where they had no authority. Let me speak with clarity. The restoration of Sabbath keeping belongs to the Elijah Company, those anointed not with opinions, but with divine unction. And their restoration begins here, not with additions, but with alignment, not with fear, but with faith, not with bondage, but with the beauty of rest. For it is written, Ye shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall ye diminish aught from it. Deuteronomy 4:2. The Elijah call is not to multiply rules, but to magnify what was already spoken. A Sabbath story to stir the soul. I once received a letter from a weary mother of 5 in our congregation. She confessed that when she first heard our teaching on the simplicity of the Sabbath, she wept, not because it burdened her, but because it set her free. For years she had been told that unless every dish was washed before sundown, unless every step was measured, and unless her children remained absolutely still, she was breaking Yahweh's law. She wrote, I dreaded Friday sunset. I loved Yahweh, but I feared his day. But then she encountered the Elijah message. She encountered the delight, not the dread. She discovered that Yahweh's command was not perform for me, but rest with me. She gathered her children in joyful assembly on the Sabbath, not to impress Yahweh with silence, but to honor him with unity. She ceased from labor, not in fear, but in peace. And in her rest she found the whisper of the Spirit saying, This is my day. This is my delight. Welcome home. And so, with a heart stirred and a spirit awakened, this weary mother embarked on a new journey of Sabbath observance. No longer was it a day of drudgery and fear, but a day of delight and freedom. She and her children looked forward to this weekly respite, where they could set aside the worries and busyness of the world and simply rest in Yahweh's presence. As the sun dipped below the horizon each Friday, she lit the Sabbath candles, the warm glow filling their home with a sense of peace. They feasted and laughed together, sang hymns, and shared stories of Yahweh's faithfulness. They stopped all servile work and attended the commanded holy convocation of the house of Israel. Easy peasy. Even the little ones rested, now understood the beauty of this day, for they felt the weight of condemnation no more. In these sacred hours, their home became a sanctuary, a taste of heaven on earth. Beyond the walls of her home, she found a community of like-minded believers who embraced the Elijah message. They encountered one another, sharing stories of how Yahweh was restoring His truth and setting them free. Together, they were a light to a world entangled in religious legalism, a testament to the beauty of a Sabbath rooted in grace and love. And as they walked in this freedom, they prepared the way for the King, their hearts aligned with His, ready to welcome Him when He returns. This is the restoration we preach, not a Sabbath of guilt, but a Sabbath of glory. Let every household hear the voice of Elijah, echoing once again, "Return, reclaim, restore, rejoice." For the voice of Yahweh is found not in the earthquake, not in the fire, but in the stillness of Sabbath. This chapter, dear reader, is not the fullness of the teaching, but it is the sounding of the trumpet. The details will come, the proof will follow, but for now, hear the cry, "Return, reclaim, restore, rejoice." Let us prepare the way of the Lord. Reflection questions, Chapter 1. According to Malachi 4:5-6, what is the specific purpose of the prophetic ministry of Elisha in the last days? What two extremes have corrupted the true understanding of the Sabbath, and how does the Elijah message differ from both? Why is the Sabbath referred to as a sign in Exodus 31:13 and Ezekiel 20:12, and what does it signify? How does the Elijah mandate relate to the restoration of the Sabbath, not just in calendar, but in character? What distinction does this chapter draw between Yahweh's original intention for the Sabbath and later additions made by religious traditions?